Some ancient rituals were meant to honor the gods, others were meant to protect society, but some were so brutal that they would be unthinkable today. Rituals where pain was proof of faith, where death was considered necessary, and where survival depended on suffering. These practices were not crimes, they were traditions. Tonight we explore 5 ancient rituals so extreme, so violent, and so shocking that modern society would never allow them. Sit back and let history reveal what people once believed was necessary to survive. Slow death by exposure, insects, and decay, ritual punishment disguised as justice. Scaphism is often described as one of the most brutal punishments in the ancient world. According to ancient Greek sources, particularly Plutarch, this method was used in the Persian Empire as a form of extreme judicial punishment, reserved for the worst crimes, treason, betrayal, or severe offenses against the state. The ritual was not designed for speed or mercy. It was designed for visibility and endurance. The condemned person was placed between 2 hollowed wooden boats, one on top of the other, leaving only the head, arms, and legs exposed. They were force-fed milk and honey, not to keep them alive out of kindness, but to ensure prolonged suffering. The same mixture was poured over their exposed skin. Left in the open, the victim became a living attractant. Insects gathered. The body weakened. Infection followed. The punishment could last for days or even weeks. What made scaphism particularly terrifying was not only the physical suffering, but its symbolism. This was not viewed simply as torture. It was justice carried out in a ritualized, almost ceremonial manner. The slow pace was intentional. The public nature of the punishment served as a warning, a visual reminder of what happened to those who betrayed the social order. Whether scaphism was widely practiced or exaggerated by later writers is still debated by historians. However, its existence in historical records reveals something deeper about ancient systems of punishment. Justice was not focused on rehabilitation, it was focused on deterrence, spectacle, and fear. In the worldview of ancient Persia, maintaining order was paramount. Individual suffering was secondary to the stability of the empire. Pain was not accidental, it was the message. To modern society, scaphism represents a complete collapse of ethical boundaries, but to the ancient world, it was a necessary response to chaos. Hearts offered to keep the sun alive, belief that the universe would end without blood. For the Aztecs, human sacrifice was not an act of cruelty, it was an act of survival. According to Aztec cosmology, the universe was fragile. The sun did not rise on its own, it required nourishment, and that nourishment was human blood and hearts. Without sacrifice, the sun would stop moving across the sky, plunging the world into eternal darkness. This belief shaped the entire structure of Aztec society. Sacrifices were performed at major temples, often during religious festivals tied to the agricultural calendar. The victims were sometimes prisoners of war, but not always. Some were chosen for their physical perfection. Others volunteered, believing their death served a cosmic purpose. The ritual followed a precise structure. The ceremony was public, surrounded by priests, music, incense, and prayer. The moment of sacrifice was believed to be sacred, a direct interaction between humanity and the gods. To modern eyes, the scale is shocking. Historical sources suggest that thousands of sacrifices could occur during major ceremonies, but within Aztec culture, this was not murder, it was obligation. The gods had sacrificed themselves to create the world. Humans repaid that debt with blood. Refusing sacrifice was unthinkable. It meant risking cosmic collapse, famine, darkness, the end of time itself. What makes this ritual particularly disturbing is not just its violence, but its logic. It was internally consistent. It made sense within the Aztec worldview. Modern society rejects the idea that the universe demands blood. But the Aztecs lived in a reality where survival depended on maintaining balance with divine forces, at any cost. Pain as devotion, belief that suffering brought divine favor. In many ancient cultures, devotion was not measured by prayer alone, but by pain. Across the ancient Near East and later in parts of the Roman world, self-mutilation was practiced as a form of religious dedication. The belief was simple: suffering proved sincerity. The greater the pain, the greater the devotion. One of the most extreme examples comes from the cult of Cebe, a goddess worshipped in Anatolia and later Rome. Her priests, known as the Gali, performed ritual self-castration during religious ceremonies. This act symbolized total surrender of identity and physical desire in service of the divine. Blood was not shameful, it was sacred. In other cultures, ritual cutting, piercing, or whipping was used to demonstrate loyalty to the gods. Pain was a form of communication. It showed commitment beyond words. These rituals were often performed publicly, reinforcing social bonds and shared belief. To endure pain without flinching was admired. To refuse was to question the gods themselves. From a modern perspective, such practices appear extreme and psychologically destructive. Today, bodily autonomy is fundamental. Pain is something to avoid, not worship. But in the ancient world, the body was temporary. The soul, the divine relationship, and cosmic order mattered more. Suffering was not meaningless, it was proof. These rituals remind us that religion once demanded physical sacrifice, not just belief. Faith was written directly onto the body. A ritual of honor that erased choice, tradition over human life. Sati was a funeral ritual practiced in parts of ancient and medieval India, in which a widow was burned on her husband's funeral pyre. In some cases, she was expected to do so voluntarily. In others, social pressure left no real choice. The ritual was framed as an act of ultimate loyalty and honor. A woman who performed sati was celebrated as pure, devoted, and spiritually elevated. Refusing was often seen as disgraceful, bringing shame upon herself and her family. The justification was deeply cultural. A woman's identity was tied to her husband. Without him, her life was considered incomplete. Death was portrayed as preferable to widowhood. In reality, the ritual erased autonomy. Many widows were young. Some were coerced. Others were drugged or physically forced. Even when presented as voluntary, the social consequences of refusal were severe. Modern society recognizes sati as a violation of human rights. It was outlawed in India during the 19th century, though isolated cases persisted much later. What makes sati particularly haunting is how tradition overpowered empathy. The ritual was not driven by anger or punishment, but by social expectation. Honor became more important than life itself. Sati stands as a reminder that brutality does not always wear the face of violence. Sometimes it wears the mask of tradition. Servants sacrificed to serve in the afterlife, loyalty beyond death. In several ancient civilizations, death was not the end of duty. In ancient China, particularly during the Shang and early Zhou dynasties, it was common for servants, concubines, and guards to be buried alive alongside kings and nobles. The belief was that these individuals would continue serving their master in the afterlife. Ancient Egypt practiced similar traditions, though later replaced real human sacrifice with symbolic figures known as shabti. The logic was clear. Status did not end with death. Power followed the soul. To ensure comfort and authority beyond the grave, rulers required servants, just as they had in life. For those sacrificed, loyalty was not optional. Their lives were extensions of their master's will. These rituals reveal a world where hierarchy was absolute. Individual life mattered less than maintaining cosmic and social order. Modern society rejects the idea that anyone's life exists solely to serve another. But in ancient cultures, loyalty extended beyond death itself. The grave was not a resting place. It was a continuation of power. If these ancient rituals shocked you, remember, they were once considered normal. History is not just a record of progress. It is a record of what humans believed was necessary to survive. If you enjoy exploring the darker side of human history, subscribe for more cinematic documentaries like this, because the past is never as distant as it seems.